Today, I'm going to show you two different automations I'm building for a recruitment agency that you can replicate and sell for your own clients. Now, the first workflow that I'm working on is called interview notes ingestion. And what it does is automatically fetch and summarize interview notes that they have when they jump on the first meeting with the candidate, on the pre-screening meeting, and then log them to the candidate's profile inside Manca, which is the ATS that they use. Now, the step-by-step process of this is first, I will get a webhook trigger when a candidate moves to a certain stage in the job pipeline, which is called client submission. So once the candidate moves inside that specific state in the job pipeline, I'm going to get that webhook and trigger the automation. Now, the second step is going to be get the transcripts from Fireflies. So what they do is when they jump on the first meeting with the client, or the candidate rather, they use Fireflies as a note taker to take notes on what happened on the meeting, right? So on the specific pre-qualifying questions for the candidate. Now I get that transcript from the API of Fireflies, and then use that transcript to generate the complete notes that they need inside Anatal, so they have ready to use notes and kind of context on what happened during the first meeting automatically, right? So I get those transcripts from Fireflies using the candidate's email. Now, sometimes these candidates' email have multiple transcripts, and what I need is the most recent one. So I used code inside n8n to pick the most recent one, and then use AI to summarize, as I mentioned before, and extract strengths, concerns, and highlights from what happened during the meeting. And at the end, what I do is just post or update those notes inside Manatal with a formatted summary or a formatted way, in a formatted way. Now, why is this valuable for recruitment agencies in particular? It's because it saves recruiters hours of manual work or note taking and ensures consistent structured summaries for client-ready submissions. So this saves hours, which is essentially translated to time in business language. So this is why this is valuable for recruitment agencies. Now here inside n8n, this is essentially the whole automation. This lacks some type of error handling, but I'm working on it, and you will get the full automation blueprint inside the link in the description. But essentially this does what I mentioned before. So first, I'm gonna get a webhook trigger when a candidate moves in between stages inside the job pipeline. So here you have the full of information about the job and the candidate that moved inside the pipeline, right? So this is the candidate test. So this is my name, my own email, etc. And here is the client submission, specific stage they moved to, right? So what I do here then is filter that in order to verify that it is the correct email that I'm looking for, and also, well, not the correct email, but that the email is not empty, essentially, because I'm gonna then use that email to find the correct transcript. And then what I'm gonna do also is verify that the stage is the correct one, because I get every time a candidate moves between stages, I'm gonna get that trigger. So what I need to do is verify that I'm in the correct stage, right? So once I do that, then what I do is just call the API of Fireflies. This works using GraphQL, and essentially what I do is just query this to get me all the transcripts available for the email that I get through the webhook, right? So the output of this is going to be just an email or a list of transcripts rather associated with that email. Now here I have an error routes. So in case this fails for some reason, because APIs sometimes fail, what I do is just notify the team via Slack, telling it that it wasn't able to get the transcript for the specific candidate, and I give them the full context of the error. Now, in case, or most of the time, it's going to be successful. I hope so. So once this is successful and I have a list of transcripts, what I do is just use code to get the most recent transcript out of those. Now, how do I identify which transcript is the most recent one? I use the specific timestamp that comes with the transcript. So how Fireflies work is every meeting has its own timestamp, which allows me to identify which one was the most recent one, and I pick that item only. So once I have that transcript, it comes as an URL, and what I do is just get the full transcript by ID. So I take the ID of the transcript and then just query again the Fireflies API to get the raw text out of that transcript. Now, once I have the raw text, essentially what I have to do now is just basically pass that to AI. And here I'm prompting the AI to basically just give me the list of items that I need. So I need a summary, then I need a list of candidate strengths, then I need also key concerns or highlights from the meeting, and I think that's it. So This is basically based on what the agency asked for. You can, again, modify this to your own, so it suits your own needs. But basically what they wanted is this structure. Now this is gonna output a JSON format. So I'm gonna use that JSON format again later to format the node inside Manata. So the output of this is gonna be just the full JSON format for the nodes, right? So once I have the JSON format, what I do is just map that using the format that I need to pass through the API to Manata. So Manata, what it does, or the way it receives information for nodes specifically, is through HTML. So here inside n8n, what I do is just use a set variable node in order to format the node the way I need it, right? So the nodes that I extract from the AI, so this all comes from the previous AI node, and what I do is just correct the format, and then I store that into a variable called formatted info. And in the end, what I do is just send that to Manata, and the way to do that is first I have to get the email, the ID, the unique ID for that candidate, because I don't have that already from the webhook. I don't have that, so I need to find the candidate by the email, which I have. So I pass the webhook email that I get. So basically the output of this is just the specific candidate that I have. This works specifically because the email also works as a primary key inside Manata, so they don't have duplicate emails inside the ATS. So I can do this and just get one item. And then basically what I just do is just use again the API from Manata to get or to send rather the formatted node. So the previous variable that I stored, I use that here in order to send that, and that's it. So this is how it works. This also has an error route in case the API fails, again given the full context of what the well, this is just a placeholder, but the idea here would be to just give them the full context on what happened, and that's it. So this is the first automation that you can sell to recruitment agencies to save them hours and save them money, which essentially translates to you being able to charge a lot for this. This is very simple, very straightforward, but again, filled with value. So yeah, you're gonna have this blueprint again in the description below. Be sure to check it out. Now, the second automation that I'm building for this agency is called Resume Formatting. And what it does is basically generate a polished CV that matches the agency's templates and share it instantly with your team. So more context about this is that once they receive an original CV in whatever format from the candidate, and in order for them to match them with the job, they need to use or send that CV with a template that they have, very specific template. So what they do now currently is do that manually. So read the client CV, or rather the candidate CV, and then use the agency template to populate that with the information from the original CV, right? So what I'm doing here is just automate that for them. Now, step by step, what I do is first, I trigger the automation once the candidate moves to a specific stage in the job pipeline. Again, the same stage, client submission. Now, second, what I'm gonna do is extract the job description and the candidate's resume from the ATS, which is essentially Manata again. Then what I'm gonna do is use AI to rewrite the candidate CV to match the offer and the job. So taking into consideration the job description, I use the information inside the CV to enhance that CV essentially and match it with the correct job. And then what I do is just autofill the template and share the Google Doc using the correct template, right? So at the end, basically what I do is just notify inside a Slack channel all the recruiters for them to review the output of the AI. So they just have to review basic things instead of just having to do the whole thing. And why is this valuable for this agency? Is because it creates a clean client-facing CV in seconds, fully standardized and branded, while removing manual editing from the recruiter's workload. So this again saves them time, which is again in business terms money. Now this automation is a little bit longer because it has a lot of API calls, but it's very straightforward. I'm gonna walk you through that. So again, this is the same webhook that I received from the ATS. I again have here the specific job, the stage in the job pipeline. And what I do again here is filter by the correct one. So I trigger this when the stage specifically is called client submission. So I do that here. Once I do that and I verify that I'm on the correct stage, what I'm gonna do again is first get the job description and also download the CV. So first here in the API call is getting the job description from Manata, very straightforward. Using the token, etc. You're gonna see this blurred because I don't want the token to be public. Then what I'm gonna do, this whole part right here, let me just highlight that. Here, what I'm gonna do is this all this API calls, etc., is just to get the candidate CV. So here, I have to identify the right candidate by email. Then once I have this, I have an ID for that candidate, and I use that ID here inside the path for the API call to get the resume. What I get from here is a link, a public link that they use. And basically what I do after that is just send a request, an HTTP request to get that file. This is public, so basically, yeah, what this does is just download the file with a raw text, or rather a PDF, and then I use this node from n8n to extract the raw text from the PDF that I get. So this is basically it. Up until this point already, I have two things: the job description, and I have the candidate CV raw text, right? Because these are all readable PDFs. So that's that. And here what I do is just map that to two variables for them to be used later. Now here I divide the workflow into two routes because they have two different templates depending on whether the candidate is technical or applying to a technical job or non-technical. So I'm going to show you now the templates, right? So here I have two different templates. This vary very little, but they have two different templates depending on the tech or non-tech status for the candidate. Now, how do I identify whether a candidate's tech or non-tech? Is using a specific field that they built for me inside Manata, which tell me basically that, right? So I get that from the webhook. So let's go back again. Actually, I don't get that from the webhook. I get that from the get job description. So the job description has a very specific field that is tech or non-tech. And I basically just decide which route to take depending on that field. So here, I basically do the same for both. What changes here is just basically the template that I use. So here I'm gonna, let me show you this. This is very niche or branded for this specific business. Again, but you can use the core ideas here to build your own or modify the automation or the workflow that I'm gonna share with you. So yeah, basically what I do here is take this template and then replace these variables that are in brackets inside the template with the specific information that I get from the AI. So first thing to do here is generate the full resume, taking into consideration the job description and the job and the candidate resume. So this is prompted to do that. This prompt is very specific for them because they give me instructions on how they wanted to have this. So this is very specific, but basically what I'm getting out of this is a full JSON object with the specific information I have to then map to the template. So you can see here that I have a location, a candidate presentation, core technical skills, which is very specific for technical candidates, then work experience. Let me just scroll down a little bit, not a little, but then I have work experience, I think salary expectation, and that's that. So once I have this, I have already the full JSON object to populate the template. So here you can see in the template that I have those. So these specific fields are going to be mapped to the JSON object that I get from the AI. So then what I have to do, basically just copy the template that I have using a Google Docs node, then populate that template using, again, the way the Google API works is very particular, because in order to populate a template, they only have this batch update endpoint, and basically what you do is just send the request on what you want to do inside the Google Doc. So here I just use the replace text function, quote unquote, to replace this text specifically for the specific JSON object that I have from the AI. So I do that for every single item, and at the end, basically what I just have is a fully populated template with the candidate's information. Up until this point, I already have the template populated, and what I have to do is just share the link. And once I have this, I just send a Slack message giving the recruiters basically all the context on what they have to do. So I give them this information. So new CV ready for review, the position, the candidate, and then I'm gonna say, please review this editable version of the CV below. Once approved, react with this specific emoji to this message to trigger the upload. Because I built an extra automation for them to automate that part. I'm going to show you this as well, but this is just basically part of this automation as well. So once they react with this emoji to the message, the other automation is going to trigger to upload that CV to Manata, and I give them the link. So this is the link to the document. Now I'm going to show you the specific a populated template or an example. So I think this one is correct. So this is the populated template specifically for this execution. And you can see that this just basically comparing this to the templates, the original templates. This just basically replaced the variables with the text with my own information, right? And you can also identify here that this specific execution used the regional manager job description, right? So, well, I'm giving it, basically this is just populated with my own information, right? So here you have it. And then what I'm gonna do is just give the recruiters access to this document for them to be able to review it, maybe do a little changes and then react to the message for it to be automatically posted to Manatal. Now that's basically the whole automation, right? So I do the same thing for non-technical, as I mentioned. This just changes the template or the specific variables I have inside the template, but it's the same process. Now let me quickly show you the third workflow or extra workflow that I built for them to post automatically the CV to Manatal. And this is going to trigger on a reaction to that message. So here I have a Slack trigger on reaction added, and this triggers every time a person reacts to a message inside that channel, right? So automation errors or automation. I'm gonna have to change this, but basically this triggers every time someone reacts to a message inside that specific channel. So the Slack trigger contains an item field, and inside the item, this is basically just the message that the person reacted to inside the channel. And this contains an item, a field called TS, which is timestamp. This basically allows me to identify the correct timestamp or the correct message for me to then post the CV, right? So the timestamp for that message was this, and the timestamp for the reaction was this. I'm gonna use this one to identify the right message. So what I have to do after I check that it is the correct reaction is get the history of the channel. So I get the list of the last 50 messages that people sent to that channel in particular. And what I then do is here I have a list of messages, and then what I do is just identify the correct one using or comparing the two timestamps. So I identify the correct item inside the whole list of 50 messages that I have from the history of the channel by the correct timestamp. So the timestamp that matches the one that came from the webhook. So here I only have one item, and then what I do is just use an HTTP request to Manatal to post that CV inside the correct candidate. Now finally, I just want to show you how this works inside the ATS. So this is Manatal. You can see here that this is a job. I'm inside a job which is called test 1. I use this specific job for testing. And here where I have my item is the correct stage. So this, I think you're not able to see this because of my camera, but basically this stage is client submission. So originally the candidate is here on apply. And once they have the first meeting, they're going to move it manually to client submission, which is going to trigger both automations. The first one that I showed you, the notes ingestion, and this one. And then what they have to do is just wait a few seconds for both automations to be completed. And at the end, what they are going to have is two things. First, the complete notes for the candidate. So this is the results for the first automation. The complete notes on what happened during that first meeting with the candidate. And then they're also going to have here in the resume as a branded CV. Here they're going to have the branded version of their CV. So this basically automates the whole client submission process inside the recruitment agency and saves them time. So that's basically it. Basically, those were the two automations that I wanted to share with you. This one extra as well. And yeah, hopefully you're able to modify this and sell this for whatever you want. So that's that, and thank you for watching.